Good morning, everyone. I hope this finds you all doing well. If I had a Guy Fawkes mask, I would be wearing it right now. As I sit here listening to the news on the television, I cannot help but wonder how this nation has gotten into the state it's in now. Our government is partially shut down. We are very quickly approaching the debt ceiling. And our legislative branch is in a gridlock. Republicans in the grand old party and the Democratic Party, they can't figure out what they want to do. They just sit there and bicker at each other constantly. They can't see past their own ideological BS. A friend of mine pointed out that we got into this mess because we cannot get past our own differences and that we are unwilling to compromise our own principles. And he's right. In order to fix this problem, we have to be able to compromise. We have to find the middle ground. And that is something that is very difficult in a nation of extremes. We go from one extreme to another, and then to another, and then finally we somewhat get it right. The truth is that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, they've sold their souls. We are no longer a democratic republic. We are a plutocracy or a corporatocracy. Basically, we are beholden to business. We are now in the era of too big to fail. And that is something that 40 years ago, 50 years ago, would have never happened, because at that point, both parties realized you can't have that happening. So, I have a compromise. I do. And the Conservative Party and the conservatives that are going to see this, you're not going to be happy. I agree that we need to cut our spending. It's not good when our government brings in $1 trillion and we're spending $3.5 trillion. That's not good. The government in our country is like a household. If you don't have the money to spend, when you overspend your budget, you go into debt, and that's not good. I will agree with that. So how do we cut our spending levels? Many people would be surprised to know that around a quarter of our budget is spent on the military. In simple terms, that's around $650 billion a year. Did you know that China is our next closest ally, and they only spend around $100 billion? Did you know that if we combined every budget from every country in the world, we account for 41% of the military budget? If we had combined every government in the world, 41%. Think about that. And that the numbers I gave you, the 650 billion, the 25%, that doesn't include our stops in Libya, Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. If we include just Iraq and Afghanistan, that's $1.6 trillion a year. Think about that. Just pause this and sit there for a minute and think. $1.6 trillion. That is half, over half, of the amount of money that our government is running over budget. We give foreign aid to other nations, and you know, look, I understand. There are starving children worldwide. There are children who do not have food. They suffer cognitive impairments because of a lack of proper nutrition. They need help, and I agree they need help. But we have the same problem here. We have children who starve in this nation. We have people who sleep in cars. We have people who live in tents. We have people who suffer in this nation. And let me tell you, yes, any child starving is a pity. It is a tragedy. It should rip out the heart of even the most evil of people to see a child suffer. But we have our priorities backwards. Charity starts in your backyard. It starts in your community, not in some third world nation in Africa. If you decide that you want to help people, great. But while we have these problems here, our government does not need to be spending money elsewhere. It needs to be solving our own problems, not the world's problems. That's, you know, it's a tragedy. It really is. You know, I really don't care at this point if I offend somebody. I really don't. If you are so hung up on your own ideas that you can't realize that this nation is quickly becoming the frickin' Titanic, I don't have any use for you. You know, I sit back and I watch the news and I hear Republicans talking about Social Security. Social Security is not an entitlement. Okay? The first day I went to a public job, I was paying into Social Security. Just like my father paid into Social Security for 50 some odd years. Just like my mother did for 50 years. Just like my uncles did. Most of my uncles passed away before they got 1 penny from Social Security. It's not an entitlement. And if you're going to sit there and say, oh, well, he's talking about Social Security, disability, SSI. You know, no, I'm not talking about SSI. I'm not talking about Social Security disability. I am talking about full-blown Social Security because you're 62 years old and your body is broke down and you can no longer work. You know, it's not a Ponzi scheme, even though you pay in thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and you will never live long enough to collect it all. Alright? It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's not an entitlement. It's a retirement. Retirement. You know, so while everybody up in Washington, D.C. is basically pulling a George Carlin on us and running around having a great, big, massive circle jerk, here's a compromise for you. This is my compromise for the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Get your damn hands out of Social Security. Quit using it as a frickin' slush fund for every little jaunt you find. It's not there to fund BS wars. It's not there to fund bridges to nowhere. It is there to ensure that our elders do not starve or freeze to death in the winter. It's there to make sure that they can have their medications and they're not picking between eating or taking some pills to make sure you're alive. You know what? When you don't take the medication at that age and you don't eat, you die. Congratulations. You go to Sheol, the grave. You want to cut spending? Fine. Half the military budget. Cut it in half. You know, $650 billion doesn't buy a lot. But the problem is that when we do fund the military, we buy Hummers. Then we have to have the Hummers retrofitted because, oops, we didn't pay for the frickin' armor to go in it. It's cheaper to buy the things you need with the proper equipment rather than buy it and then say, oops, we forgot something, time to retrofit it. So cut it in half. Make the military leaner and meaner the way it was supposed to be. Alright? Next, we can close those loopholes that the 1%ers get that you hear about. You know, those mythical 1%ers. The ones that are gaining wealth while everybody else is akin to slave labor. Sure. Let's close those loopholes for them. Alright? And while we're at it, we can raise taxes. Now, I know that everybody's going to jump up and say, oh my God, he said raise taxes, that's going to kill the economy. No, it won't. This nation survived for decades with pretty damn high tax rates. At one point, it was 90%. You know what happened? People found ways around that. It was called, when they were making $300,000 a year, and they had to pay 90% taxes on that, they decided, hey, wait a minute, it's a great idea if I put this money back into my business, hire more people. Because I don't know about you, but if I had to pay 90 cents on every dollar that I made, oh yeah, I'd be finding a way to invest that money. It isn't going to kill this nation. However, we are very quickly approaching a time when the way that things have been done for 30 years will not be sustainable anymore. No longer are we going to be able to run around with millionaires paying 15% in taxes, while the working class pays 25%. We're not going to be able to continue that. I agree with Lincoln. I do. You want to talk about Republican standards? That was the man. He was the first Republican to win a national election. You know, he believed and he felt that this nation had strayed from its ideals and its goals. And we have. We have gone so far off the path that Lincoln and many other people thought we should be on. It's not. It's not funny. It's actually very ugly what this nation has become. You know, I don't like the Tea Party. I don't. I think they're corporate shills, if you want to know the truth. They're no better than the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. The only difference is I have more disdain for them because they won't admit it. At least with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, you know they sold their souls. But the Tea Party? They try to hide the fact that they've sold their soul. They want you to think that they really want to save America, but they don't. They want to preach the mantra of pull yourself up by the bootstraps. personal responsibility. I'm all for that, really, I am. You know, there was a time in this country that a migrant worker could go from picking oranges in a grove in Florida to mining coal in Pennsylvania. Wow, before you know it, he owned a small trucking company. Really, man, that was the American dream, man. Go from nothing to owning your own small business. That was, man, just think about that. Go from living in Florida poaching gators to survive, telling your kids to dangle their feet in the St. John's River. Don't worry, don't worry, kids. Daddy'll shoot the gator before he gets your foot. To here's your Christmas gift, a little red wagon that you go out there and you pick up lumps of coal so I can split it and sell it for extra money. Well, me and uncle, his wife and kids, 18 people live in a little 1,000 square foot basement. To, hey, I got this contract here to raise bison, and turning that into another small business, a trucking company. That was the American dream, basically. You come here, you have nothing, and when you pass away, you have something. It doesn't work that way for many people anymore. That's gone. That's gone because of trickle-down economics. They're so concerned about the businesses that are already here, they won't give a chance to the one that's coming up, or the one that's trying to break free. The guy he's trying, or she, or he or she is trying to start a business, to make their way in the world. It doesn't happen. Not now. We're in the age of too big to fail. Again, that's that's something that should not happen. That too big to fail should have never even been uttered. And I sit back and I look at the Tea Party and I look at the Occupy movement, and I agree with them. Our government, our nation has been hijacked. And we need to take our nation back. We, the people, need to stand up, and we need to take our country back. But I just can't see myself siding with the Tea Party, because they really want the status quo. They don't want anything to change. Most of the people that are in the Tea Party, they think they have something. I hear people talk about the haves and the have-nots. They talk about the haves and the have-nots. And really, that's the incorrect belief. Really, it is. It is not the haves and the have-nots. It is the people who have, the people who have nothing, and the people who really think they have something, but they don't. And there is nothing worse in this world than to see somebody who really thinks they have something and they don't. It's painful to watch the realization slowly dawn on them that they are a step away from being homeless, from being destitute, from having nothing. That is a very, very painful experience. And be happy you've never seen it. Because something like that is enough to drive somebody insane. You know, I see a lot of people talking about, you know, gun control, and I know that that is not the original content of this clip. I understand the need for gun control, and I agree with quite a bit of it. I really do. The problem is that while we focus on one thing, we tend to let other things get. Right now, many people got focused on gun control, and we did not hold our government accountable for shutting itself down. And the problem is we have not held our elected representatives accountable for their actions. We have not held these people accountable in almost 30 years. The last one we really held accountable was Jimmy Carter. And that is the problem. We do not hold people accountable anymore. We would rather hold the general public accountable than the people that we put in office to secure the general welfare of the people. People, we are no longer the greatest nation in the world. Think about that. Just, you know, we are not the greatest nation in this world anymore. And you know who's to blame for this? It is not the Democratic Party. It is not the Republican Party. They had their hand in it. Oh yeah, they had their hand in it. But we only have ourselves to blame. It's our fault because we refuse to allow, not even allow, we refuse to hold people accountable for their actions. And until we do, we're getting ready to fall off the fiscal cliff.